Now let's get to our first speaker, Marty Fisher, president of Sherpa McKim. So owning and managing Sherpa marketing since 1996, Marty brings big idea thinking, marketing intelligence, and business acumen to every customer interaction. A father of 5 children, dedicated husband, PC gamer, and passionate skier of snow and water, Marty is a graduate of the University of Guelph. I think there's quite a few Guelph grads in the room today. He has grown Sherpa marketing from a one-person shop to its current state, a provider of full stack of marketing services for clients across North America, and a staff of almost 30 talented employees. Please welcome Marty.
Give me a second to get organized. Wait. Okay, good to go. Hi, good morning. Great to see everybody. Wow, 2.5 years, I think. Mary said, "Hey, you got a haircut." That was kinder than saying, "Hey, you put on 20 pounds." So a little bit about us before I get going today. We've been in business for 26 years. We now actually have 55 employees and growing thanks to our merger with McKim. I thought it'd be interesting to point out for those of you who are curious, how are we handling sort of pandemic? We've adopted the hybrid workplace model. So people are working from home and coming into the office a couple days a week, and that seems to be working really well. We have clients all the way from Switzerland to Australia to the United States and Canada. And we really embrace this concept of full stack marketing, which is you have to know a lot of things in a lot of different ways to be an effective marketer today. So with any luck, we'll get through all of this. I'm known to talk a lot and long, so Mary's gonna tackle me if I get too boring and too long. So I'll go through some quick hitters, just some really fun stats, I think, that are worth sharing with the group. I'll talk about kind of how we look at marketing in a 360-degree view, the importance of SEO, and then technical SEO versus the dark arts, which is the hard part of SEO. I'll give you some real actionable tips and tricks that you can walk away from and start using today, or at least encourage your agency to be doing on behalf of yourself. And you can audit them, and if there's any time, we'll get to questions. And so I'm just was wondering, Mary, if you could help me get to the slide view here. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so we're kind of here to share and vent, collaborate, learn, and educate. So let's start. Oh, that kicked me off. Is it just this? I want to see the same one that I'm on. Okay.
Keep going.
All right, keep going. Except I think it's not working. Okay, quick hitters. There we go. So here's something interesting. During the pandemic, year over year, and this is the importance of sort of matching what you do with the intent of what people are doing in the real world. 700% increase in searches year over year for in stock. 700%. Next one. Oh, still not showing up there. Here's a really radical one. Year over year during the pandemic, a 3,000% increase in searches for curbside pickup. So, you know, what the takeaway from that is, you want to meet people with content that matches what they're looking for. So if you had an e-commerce site and you didn't actually publish your curbside pickup hours or how you did it, you wouldn't even have shown up. So there's things that you want to do as a marketer to sort of follow intent or search volume or trends so that you're matching what people are looking for. Are we back? Oh, sorry. Okay. Huh. One moment, please. Maybe I'll tell a joke. How many programmers does it take to change a light bulb? Can't be done. It's a hardware problem.
I think the best bet would be to use.
Oh, there we go. Okay, now we're on a slide that changed. There we go. Awesome. Thank you. Well, it's still not matching here, but we'll figure it out. Okay. So that was really just to give you an idea again of matching what it is people are looking for. And so as agri-marketers, you want to think about what it is that your audience, prospective or actual customers are thinking of. Here's another one. The fastest growing social platform, 105% growth year over year with TikTok. If you're not doing TikTok, you should be doing TikTok. Your audience is there. Sponsored social. Believe it or not, people are spending more marketing budget this year on sponsored social than they are Google AdWords. It's the first time ever that that number has actually sort of crested over. So again, if you're not putting a huge chunk of your money in social sponsored, you're missing out. This is where it's going. Here's another really interesting one. And this is a kind of a different graph, but what I want you to look at is the different age demographics are mapped on the right and in the bubbles, and then the left in the bubbles. And what you can see is baby boomers use search engines to get information, but they don't use social networks to get information or do social search. But millennials and Generation Z do use social for search. And so if you think about it, what you want to do is adapt the content that you're putting into social to meet what it is and how people use social channels. So they're actually, what you want to do is think about making your content for something that can be consumed in stream. There's very little interest in leaving the social channel. So you have to think about, how do I provide useful information in 15-second snippets or less that people will then sort of hopefully get attached to enough that they will jump out to your website. But effectively, that one's a real jaw dropper for me as someone that was really started out early with the Google AdWords. Here's another one. Social media users overwhelmingly trust other users, so their friends, colleagues, people they follow, as their preferred form of influencer. So they're most likely to buy from them based on a recommendation at a 37% rate versus celebrities. And I know there's going to be some talk about micro influencers later today, and that should certainly lean into that. So there's a lot to be said for getting your own followers to talk about you and endorse your brands. So this is an interesting one. So just quick show of hands with the people here. When was the last time anyone here made a significant purchase or a travel decision without consulting social media or the internet or search engine? Never, right? So if you're not putting good content out that people are using to inform themselves when they're actually deciding what they want to do, where they want to go, you're not going to show up. So we all use the internet to inform our purchase decisions. This is another good quick hitter. So in 2022, for the first time, there will be more social network users age 65 and older than those aged 55 to 64. And by 2023, users aged 65 and up will also outnumber users aged 18 to 24. So that, you probably don't think about that. It's obvious because that is like just straight demographics. There's a lot of baby boomers. But what the takeaway from that is, as you're shaping your content on social channels, it's really important to think about your audience and where they are. And maybe you talk to that larger, broader audience in a different way. So it's not a one size fits all message. You certainly want to try and tailor it to the audience and the age and the demography of who you're trying to reach. So we all know customer journeys are messy. We don't think of them as linear. We think of them as a piece of spaghetti that's thrown on the wall. It's literally like you can just today with analog and digital channels and omni-channel, you can kind of hop off and hop on the onboarding process anywhere, anytime, anyhow you want. And so what you want to do as you think about customer journeys is make sure that you're meeting people with the best version of yourself at any point so that it's a high quality experience everywhere where they encounter you. So this is really where I want to jump off from. And this is an important concept, and we have really shaped our agency and built our agency to think around this concept. 95% of people at any given time are not in buying mode. So why are we trying to sell them something? Why are we trying to tell them something? And what we have as marketers is sort of constant pressure to deliver sales. You know, we've got to deliver. Where's my leads? I need my leads. And what happens is we get into this never-ending cycle of spending a lot of money, getting a little bit of impact, and then falling off, spending a lot of money, getting a little impact. And we've kind of drifted away from the bigger picture, which is building a consistent brand story over a long time that would move people over those really long decision cycles. You know, people generally don't switch tractor paint color overnight. That's a big thing to get them to go from Case IH maybe to John Deere. That takes years. And so you think about it, you have lead gen, which is really just at the top of the sales funnel. And you have, you know, we all talk about click-through rates. And when you really look at it, if there's only, and you got to think of it in the context of agriculture, there aren't that many farmers. It's actually like, let's call it the universe is say 30,000 farmers that matter. And it's a number that's shrinking every year. So your universe is actually quite small. And so you think, well, you know, I can put this thing out and I can reach my whole universe. Well, it's a small universe. And if you're only getting a 1.5% click-through rate, well, at 1,000 people, that's only 15 people that you actually got to your website on a click. And so taking that sort of the next step, there's another fall off after that, right? So now there might be another only 10% that click or do the thing that it is you want them to do when they got to the website. So that could be a form submission. It could be looking at trial data. It could be product purchase, but you're literally down to one lead that may or may not buy. So we have this intense focus probably in the last 10 years as marketers and generating leads. We've been forgetting about the other 95% who aren't ready to buy, but are going to buy sometime. And so I wanted to kind of put it in terms that would really resonate. So I'm thinking about myself here. I am going to buy a new pickup truck. I am not going to buy a new pickup truck today, but I'm going to buy one. And it's probably 2 years from now. But guess what? I have been researching mightily the difference between the F-150 Lightning and the Rivian R1T. I've got it down to one of those two. And I've been on YouTube looking at reviews. I'm doing all kinds of things to sort of pre-qualify myself. And so that is really where I'm in that 95% part that is eventually going to buy, that you want to meet me sometime in that journey with really high quality content that makes me start to put you in my consideration set. So not that long ago, you know, if you wanted to buy a new pickup, you'd read Motor Trend magazine. You'd go to 3 dealerships and talk to a salesperson. Today, I search Google. I belong to a couple Facebook user groups. I will enter into Instagram DMs or a WhatsApp group to have a discussion and look on YouTube. And so then I show up to the dealership ready to buy, and all that other sort of more traditional marketing is completely irrelevant. So it's all about certain people and in their moments of intent, and have content that is of high quality that really puts you at the fore of their consideration set. So with that in mind, then how we've kind of built our framework is if 94% of the people are using the internet to do search and they find you, then what is it that they find? It's content. And so we look at content in two ways. There's a soft component and there's a hard component. The hard component is sort of what we would call the knowable and doable. So that's doing the work to look at keyword search volumes, using Google AdWords Planner, looking at Google Trend to see what are the things in your industry specifically that people are looking for. And we inventory those words and long tail phrases. And then we move over then to the soft side, which is the nice flowery images and the right kind of words that make it less boring, because no one's ever bored anyone into buying something. So you bring those two together and now you have marketing that's starting to work. Everything okay, Mary? Okay. So then you got to look at it as an agency or as any of the businesses, what drives the people to your website. So you have SEM and sponsored social, you have organic, you have traditional things like email. Text is huge. If you are not doing text marketing, I implore you, do text marketing. The numbers are off the charts in terms of conversions. It is literally the most effective tool that we're using for our clients in terms of getting things out and getting people to act. And then of course, traditional mass still has its place. There's a lot to be said for that great billboard, well placed in a rural location that all of your customers in that area are going to drive by. So there's still a really important thing. It's just that will create awareness that will eventually drive people to your website. And so website's the next. So the thing that I would say here is, and how we kind of look at things is, great, you've done all the hard work as marketers to get people's attention, to tell a story, to meet them in their moments of intent. Now you've got them at the website. Measure it, do something, look at it almost every day. There is so much great stuff that you can uncover and mine out of there from a demographic standpoint, from a psychographic standpoint, from a time of day standpoint. There's all kinds of great data there. You just have to commit to looking at it and then lean into inbound and CRM, which is sort of building out those constant contact pieces where you're sending out high value unsolicited information and then using a CRM system. So how important is SEO? Well, I can sum it up with one joke. Where is the best place to hide a dead body? Page 2 of Google search ranking. So if you don't think it's important, just take a look at that graph. So literally the top 3 get the lion's share of the clicks. And once you get past number 10, which is what, obviously not, once you're down to 10, you're not getting any clicks. And if you're number 11, like that's the worst place in the world to be. It's like, oh, if I could only be number 10. So, and on branded, again, 34% of the clicks. But here's something that's really interesting. So it kind of flips. So if you take and do the work, the hard work of the inventory of search terms, and you architect and write your content properly, now you get into long tail search. And so that's where I've probably said this here before, you're a guy and you think you're going to get married and it's like, oh, I'm going to search diamond ring. And it's like, ooh, that was a little overwhelming. Okay, now I'm going to go like diamond ring, Guelph. Well, that wasn't very good either. And then you kind of start to refine it. So you're adding in all those additional things that makes the search match a little bit closer to what it is you're looking for. And so the reality is that a lot of the results actually become a lot of the results are impacted then from those longer, more qualified searches that you put in. So those people ipso facto, by putting in more words, and if they click, they are a more qualified visitor to your website. So it really reinforces the importance of doing the research, finding the right words that people are using, and then making sure that you have the engineering, the content that meets them. So we break SEO into technical, which is kind of the knowable, doable. We call that the programmer side of the shop. And then the dark art, which is the words and pictures, the storytelling. That's the hard stuff. So technical SEO is really knowable and doable. Like this is really just, it boils down to, lazy is not the right word, but making the time to do this. It's like the fit and finish as a carpenter. It's like all those, you put in the baseboards, so you still have to go in, like where you put the brad nails in and put the putty over. That's that little fit and finish stuff. So there's lots of tools that can help. It is time consuming. And I would argue, based on my experience, that it's often forgotten or not even done by your vendors or your partners. So these are some of the these are some of the tools that you can access in Screening Raw and Google sites. Free tip, write it down, start using them. Like they're great tools. Organic, on the other hand, of course, is the holy grail, because as I just showed you, the top 3 organic get the lion's share of the clicks. So that is really takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it is about content and intent. And if anyone tells you that they can get a top 3 listing for you, you should just hang up on them. It's not doable. It's not a thing. Those are fraudsters. It is really, really hard to get a top 3 ranking. And SERP, search engine results page ranking. So there's that advanced web ranking as a tool we use. That allows you to plug in a whole bunch of different keywords that you want to monitor and a whole bunch of competitors that you want to monitor. And then you can also set it geographically. So you could do like local, you could do Guelph, you could do Canada, and then you can measure against the whole world. And you can actually then automate the process of seeing how you are doing in search relative to all of your competitors. So really, really important thing to do. So here we are, tips and tricks. Here's some stuff that you can start doing right now. So I'm harping on this. I'm hopefully you're going to take this away, but you've got to work on aligning your content with search intent. And it's really the purpose behind everything that people type into that address bar. And Google is totally engineered to kind of understand and satisfy or meet that query with the right type of content. And so this is not us, this is Google. This is what they call it. They call it moments. And so it's when anybody turns to whatever device it is to act on a need, and you want to show up to be useful, you want to be found, and you want to be accountable and give them something to do. So it's kind of like those, if you just think about search, it's the I want to know, I want to go, what is the best, how do I? You have to kind of have that mindset as you kind of go out and start thinking about how you want to create your marketing campaigns. So, how do I generate more leads? How do I, when do I, where is, what is the best, who is? Those are all those types of things that people are putting into Google every day. And so here's a great example of how Google is meeting intent the right way. So I want to put in, and you can't see because it's fuzzy, but it's how do I cook a perfect steak? Well, it's not returning me, Costco steaks and Safeway steaks for sale. It's actually returning me recipes and a video of Gordon Ramsay saying, here's how you cook the perfect steak. So it's, you really have to kind of think about how clever Google is, and it understands what they're trying to do. So there's different types of intent. There's informational, which would be a search that falls where somebody is looking for something very specific. How big is, how many goals has, when was the last time the Leafs won the cup? Navigational, in this case, they're looking for where is an app or where is a website. I'm trying to find, something. Commercial, that's the intent there is looking for a specific product, but hasn't made a decision yet. And I think that is really what, as agri-marketers, that's the world that we live in every day. And then there's the really great one, of course, is the transactional, which is that they've decided to buy something specific, whether it's a piece of equipment, a seed, or some crop protection product. So that's the types of intent. Here's some tips. So you gotta write your AdWords like an ad. If you can't bore somebody into buying something from you, why would you write even a little text ad in a boring way? So make sure that they are well thought out and that they give really quick insight into the content that they can expect to consume when they get there. So you want to make sure that your Google ad copy aligns really closely with what it is they're going to find when they click on that link, and write it in a as non-boring way as you possibly can. So you want to use the keywords that people are searching. You want to have a title that matches or meets the intent. You want to avoid sort of duplicating content between your title and your body copy. Don't stuff it with too many keywords, and keep it descriptive but concise. And Google does a good job forcing that on you with the character limit anyways. Meta tags. So then that's the brief summary of a page in search engine result page ranking, SERP, is displayed right below the title tag. So it does not directly impact search rankings, contrary to popular belief, but it does influence click-through rates. And so it's like, and I like what Google says, it's a meta description tag should generally inform interest users with a short, relevant summary of what a particular page is about. They're like a pitch that convinces a user that the page is exactly what they're looking for, which ultimately then is the product or service that they're exactly looking for. So when writing your meta descriptions, write unique meta descriptions, use action-oriented copy, include your target keywords, try and match intent, and provide an accurate summary. Next one, this is a really easy tip that so few people do. Don't upload like the giant high-res image that your photographer supplied you with. Take some time, open it in Photoshop or whatever image editor that you have, and image size it down to a web appropriate sized image, because I'll tell you what, man, does Google ever penalize slow websites. So take the time. That's another sort of fit and finish piece that you just, it's easy to sort of drag that high-res image in, that 2.5 megabyte JPEG that's like 4,000 pixels wide when it only need to be 400 pixels. Take all that information or all that data out. You can also, use free tools to help with that. So Tiny, PNG, Image Optim, and Short Pixels. So there's a few quick hitters for you guys. Another one, images, label them. Just if it's a picture of a canola plant and it's a particular hybrid, label what it is. It will actually help your search engine rankings. Don't just, upload 1234556.jpg. Actually label it. And then lazy loading is another really important thing. So that's basically just a technical thing that gets something started so that there's a visual and instant reward for the users so that something is coming. Because as we know, if we don't sort of create that interest and you just confront them with a blank page for any length of time, they're just going to leave. So if you can use a lazy load tool, something will start to happen that will keep their interest for longer and ensure that they stay. So optimizing your page speed. So this is, this is really sort of a grander thing. And the first two things I've talked about do that, but you really should use GT metrics to go through your website and get a site speed score. And so here's one that is a former client of ours that we gave them a website and it had a score, I think of like a B+ or an A. And then they started updating it themselves and uploading giant images. And now it is, or was, an E. And their search engine results started to go down from there as well. So if you ever needed proof, there it is. So now we're into sort of the real boring stuff. So if we were putting putty in you know, the brad nail holes, now we're really going into the weeds here. We're like trying to choose the right, you know, we're going to use the dark brown or the dark brown stain on the baseboards. So internal linkings, you really want to think about your website in the context of no dead ends. So wherever someone is, they should be able to get somewhere else that is really sort of anticipates where they would want to go on their journey. And so that's really sort of building that menu and that internal linking so that you can get anywhere from wherever you are. Don't make them have to click the back button 5 times to get to the other thing that they want to do. Make it easy for them to get somewhere else in the website. And so the other thing that I would say is you can link, and this is perfectly acceptable, to off-site really credible sources if you want that, and reference them, that will give you a great sort of impact. So if there's really high ranking, high traffic websites that people use. So let's say you had a great article on Real Ag, and there was a lot of traffic, and Real Ag has high domain authority because they get a lot of traffic from ag folk, that you would not be offside at all to pull or create a link from a page on your website to that article if it reinforces a particular product or service. And that will then, by the sort of like a halo effect, drag your page up in search ranking. So just a quick little tip, and something that people often forget about, that, you know, if you're being talked about somewhere else, it's really a high, an authority, that you can reference that on your own website. So the other one is user experience, and there really is no substitute for a great user experience. And ultimately, this is probably the battle that we face on a daily basis the most. It is a struggle between having that whiz bang awesome website that, you know, just looks great and wins camo awards and all that sort of stuff, is directly sort of in conflict with what Google wants, which is really fast, boring websites. And so you've got to kind of pick your battle. It's this sort of homogenization of trying to meet in the middle. And so, you know, you want to make sure that you, and again, for page ranking, you know, any of you that edit pages or are in charge of the people that edit the pages, again, fit and finish, make sure that they do the H1, H2, H3 tags, that the content actually looks good. Don't make it boring. Pop-ups are dead. Like, don't, like, almost all, like, quick show of hands, how many of us use pop-up blockers? Like, so why would you make a website with a pop-up? It's not going to work. So just don't. And as hard as it is, white space is your friend. You do not have to cram the whole page with all kinds of content. And of course, I'm, you know, probably not taking my own advice because my slide is full of content, but white space is your friend. It does draw people's eyes to the important things. And because web pages can be long, you can air things out. So here's a really cool one. And if you think about it, you know, lots of us use content management systems, and they will generate sort of these gobbledygook page titles, you know, just automatically, if you don't go in and actually give the page title a name. And so the graphic shows really something, you know, would I rather go see domain/puppies adorably confused by rainbow, or would I rather go see http://cdn blah blah blah? Like, first, the one on the bottom looks like I'm going to get a ransomware attack. The one on the top looks like, hey, I like puppies, I'll go to that page. So it's just another fit and finish thing to make sure that you title and put something descriptive that is really pulls people into that page. Getting the authoritative backlinks, that's really just goes back to what I was saying about, say, Real Ag, where if there is an article, you could put that on your website. But then the flip side of it is you could get Real Ag to maybe post something about you. And so that's the other side, and that's the authoritative backlink. So are you content with your content? I mean, that's really what we have as we kind of get close to wrapping up here. Content is still king. People have been saying that for a long time. I'm here to reinforce that. It has not gone away. So long form content ranks better on Google. And more importantly, meaty content that is meaningful and well written performs even better. So we're talking like 3,000 words. And so that's something we've really discovered on our journey in B2B marketing, is that the real successes are when we take the time to create big, meaty, meaningful, well-written content that people can either download or consume online. And so Google ultimately is trying to focus on the needs of the user. And so there's, you know, everything that they do in the search business is to try and make sure that they're returning the most meaningful and best and most impactful content when people are using the search. And you know, the day that they don't, they're in a lot of trouble, right? So that is the core of their business. So they will keep doing that as best they can. And so going kind of back to an earlier thing, as you're architecting your blog content or your long form content, whatever it is, make sure that you are doing let's go all the way back to what I start with, the keyword research, the search volume, all those sorts of things. That is the knowable, doable kind of hard work. Make sure that you're doing that so that you then know what words you have to put into your content. Don't just write content to write content. Write content because it meets up with something that people are looking for. So breaking it down again, so you have the soft component. So that's the attention grabbing, meaningful, emotional words. It's great pictures with really good, easy to understand calls to action. And it's creative and emotionally driven. And then you do all that through the hard work, which is researching the activating keywords, figuring out what the best offers are, making sure that you're weighting the channels that it fits in, and that it is actually analytics and data driven. And, you know, I would say just for this entire group, as modern marketers, that's the expectation. So when we say full stack and when we say modern marketers just don't go off and write copy. They think about the copy that they should write so that they can meet people in their moments of intent. And they know how to use all those different tools and become more of a full stack marketer. So this is really quite a good slide from Moz. And as you kind of go up, you know, you're getting into kind of the harder things to do, but they are also sort of the things that really, if you can get up to that pinnacle of the pyramid, those are the things that will really separate you from the pack. So you could also map, so you've got improves competitiveness going up. It's also more expensive as you go up because it's harder to do and it takes more time, and time is money. But that's a really great slide to kind of just have in your desk and something that you can reference. Am I doing this? Have I asked myself all of these questions? Have I asked my agency partner any of these things or all of these things? And they should be able to answer them. So I think I did it. There were a lot of hidden slides, Mary. So I guess now open the floor to questions. Don't be shy. Could be anything about marketing. Yes.
Content, these larger articles. How would you balance that versus a conversational podcast, you know, that
Yeah.
provides information, those two pieces?
So there's interesting things you can do with podcasts, which by the way are just like this, the data on podcasts just rocketing. Like it's a absolutely viable and useful media to get information. And you know, if you're not sponsoring podcasts, find one, because they're really kind of the future. And you know, I can see behavior changing amongst all of the colleagues and clients that we work with. Like, who doesn't listen to a podcast now? But to answer your question, how I would maybe, and what I think the question is, so there's a lot of good content in a podcast. I would suggest that you would use a transcription tool and then have that posted on your website. So you'd have the audio version, but then take the text or transcribed version of that and post it onto a page. And then you'll get the benefits of, wherever you get your podcast, whether it's Google or Apple or whatever, or Spotify, you've met those people who want to have the audio experience. But if you put the text on your website of that through transcription, then you'll be able to start ranking for that and whatever awesome things you said on the podcast. No problem. And I would say, just to further that, if you're doing video, please take the time to make an SRT file and upload it with your video. So that's SRT file is the text version of what, if you go in, if you see like a LinkedIn video and there's a transcription there, that's an SRT file. And so make sure that you transcribe your video so that there's the text version, because frankly, I think most of us, again, show of hands, how many of us actually listen to the videos on LinkedIn? Probably not many, right? We're actually reading the text that's as we're scrolling through LinkedIn. So if you don't have that, you're missing out on a communication piece. I know it's meaty. It was boring. I'm sorry. Yes.
Question for the online group here. Is the content in a blog plugin is searchable content on regular web page?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I think the question would be then, is the blog embedded and a part of your website, or is it a standalone entity? Would be my question. Because if it's a standalone on its own domain, then you really have to work hard to kind of build the interconnections, and it would probably be better to be part of your domain, so that then you are increasing the domain authority of both properties. So each benefits the other as a together sort of piece, as opposed to two separate pieces.
I may have answered my own question, but I'm curious about backlinks.
Yeah.
We represent dozens of manufacturers, and I've spent a fair amount of time trying to make sure that those links are set up and working between us.
Yeah.
Is that still an important thing?
Yeah, 100%. That is like the SEO basics. There's high value. I mean, let's say it's John Deere. If John Deere is linking to you and you're linking to John Deere, that's a good day for both parties. Yes. Yeah, great question. So this is another one that we're confronted with literally every day. It's interesting, right? Because the tools to make websites have improved exponentially over the last, I'm going to say 5 years specifically. So you have tools like Wix and Webflow, for instance, that have absolutely empowered competent marketers and creatives to basically do zero code websites that look great. And we're competing against that. And, so what I would say is, if it's sort of a one-off or a custom landing page or something that's never going to have to be sort of meaningfully deconstructed or connected to some sort of a SaaS tool or an API or a web service, those Wixes and those Webflows are fine. They're good tools. They allow you to get to market, look great really quickly. But if you need to do things that are more meaty and integrated, I would say that that's where those start to fall a little flat, and you probably want to stick with a WordPress type solution. And then, you know, we could sit and talk about like page builders that sit on top of that for hours. But most of the web work that we're doing is WordPress these days. The Drupals and Joomlas have certainly seemed to have dropped off. And what I would say is happening in the web world and is a lot like what happened in the design world. We're going to consolidate on a platform. So like, you know, nobody uses CorelDRAW and Quark Express anymore. Everybody uses Adobe Creative Suite. And that's what everybody is sort of agreed that we're all going to know how to do that. And it feels like in the web world that there's consensus that WordPress is sort of the de facto standard that we've all, not all, but many of us have agreed is that's the platform that we're kind of working towards. So, but there's, you know, lots of other ways to do it. And frankly, our shop would prefer to write custom code all the time anyways, but that's not what the world wants. Does that answer? Okay. Anyone else? How am I doing for time? 5 minutes.
Do you have any data or insights in general about the performance of, let's say, the top organic search results versus paid ads?
Yes, it's probably a hidden slide. Search does, I would say, and I could get this wrong, and I will certainly try and get your name and follow up and get you a more precise answer. But I believe that comparatively, people would still only click on a paid ad at about a 30% rate when it's a head-to-head competition on a search ad versus an organic ad. It's interestingly though, and maybe it's just because I'm a marketer, I always look at like, if people are gonna like spend money to make an ad word for that thing that I typed into search, it's probably what I'm looking for. So I'm actually not averse to clicking on ads because I hope that the marketer has done a good job to kind of actually match my intent to show up. And just for everyone, AdWords and sponsored social, they're great ways to make sure that you show up. Like it's a pay to play. So if I want to show up for, I don't know, Ford F-150 pickup, I mean, it's going to cost me a heck of a lot for that click through, but I can guarantee that I will at least show up in the #1 paid ad ranking. And the thing that we like to think about AdWords for is it's a great bridge to use while you're working on your organic and getting it sort of coming up and increasing in the SERP rankings. That's sort of the long game. The AdWords, it lets you be there on those specific search terms. So long as you're willing to pay, you will show up. And that is an important thing to consider. Like if it's important that you show up, you should pay to show up. Don't be invisible.
Marty, I have another question here from online. I'm just speaking a little bit louder so that they can hear me. So it's from Kelly Green. She says, thank you. At the beginning of your presentation, you talked about various generations and the space where they are looking for information. The Census of Ag recently shared that the average age of a farmer is 56, while the age of the Canadian is 41. How does this demographic impact the digital strategy for an ag marketer versus a non-ag space?
Thanks, Kelly. That's a great question. And that is an important question. And that was notionally what I was touching on when I threw that one piece of data up. It's really important that we all appreciate and think of it in a not a one size fits all solution. So different age demographics are using different social platforms at greater frequencies and greater lengths of time. So just make a generalization, but let's talk about the older age demographic, for instance. Let's the 56 pluses. They are using Facebook more than they're using TikTok. And so if you're going to try and reach those 56-year-old people, then you want to make sure that you have your skew or your strategy kind of and your spend skewed more toward that channel, and then think about creating content that meets or interests that audience. And so and this is sort of the fractured nature of, I think, what we all as marketers are dealing with every day now is we have finite resources in terms of dollars to spend, and we have audiences that have sort of hived themselves off into very unique channels. So like TikTok's awesome, right? But it does skew young, and you can't do this. One creative does not work across all channels strategy anymore. You make TikToks for TikTok, and that is a wildly different thing than a static Facebook ad. And that is a wildly different thing than a LinkedIn ad. So, so Kelly, I would say it requires a more fulsome thought about segmenting your channel strategy and then sub-segmenting within your channel strategy to make sure that you're meeting those people. And I'm getting the look. So Kelly, you've got my number. You can call me in Winnipeg.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Marty. I
My
think
pleasure.
we've all learned a lot from you today. As a banker, I've learned a lot. I'm not a marketer by any means, so thank you so much for your time. Let's give a round of applause to Marty.